Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders in the path they took to create change. Past guests include Joe Polish, Roland Frazier, and Kevin Nations. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 27 years. So if you're a company that has software, a product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you can email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You can also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Aaron Hageman. Aaron is the founder of DDI, that's Delivery Drivers, Inc. It's a third-party human resources and driver management firm that specializes in the last mile of delivery. And they also operate as part of the gig economy. This year, DDI will make over 100 million deliveries, including 10 million meals. This year, they're also projecting that they're going to onboard and approve more than 300,000 drivers, which compares to just about 20,000 a few years ago. Aaron's been an entrepreneur in various businesses for 25 years, and he uses this experience to provide mentorship and entrepreneurial education to students of all levels. He also donates his time to addressing homelessness in his hometown of Southern California. I'm very pleased to welcome here today my friend, Aaron Hageman. Welcome, Aaron.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. So long before you got to DDI, you've been interested in entrepreneurship. Long before you got to DDI, you were interested in entrepreneurship. But how did you get into it? What was your first business, or what was really the thing that got you on that path?
You know, I've really had the opportunity to work for myself throughout almost my whole career. Where my first real taste came was when I was in college, and I was doing a lot of independent catering. And I had the opportunity to really kind of work my own gig, as we would call it these days, set up my school schedule a couple of days a week, find some clients where I could have some consistent corporate, breakfast catering jobs on some other days of the week. And I got the taste for working for myself. Felt the early tax responsibilities of having to earn, a lot of earnings this way through a business and things like that. And it was really fun, and got the bug while I was in college.
Yeah, I could relate to that. So how did what you did in college then shape kind of the type of activities that you followed after you finished up with college?
One of the things I did when I was younger that I think was important to my development is I've always been interested in law and, going eventually to law school. So I went to school, studied political science, international relations, history, things like this, intending to go into law school. But one of the things I did was I interned with the district attorney when I was younger. And I realized pretty early on that I was not a lawyer, that, when I was much better suited to be an entrepreneur, drive the business, have the lawyers work for me, and, really work in these worlds. DDI, as we know it, is, it lives in employment and labor law in and around 1099s versus W-2s, independent contractors, all of those things. And so knowing that I didn't actually want to go down the law path, finding another route really was, I think, an important early dynamic and decision point.
Oh, yeah, very interesting. I actually interned in the DA's office also, which told me I didn't want to go into criminal law, and that was for sure. But it's interesting. It's like it kind of shaped what you wanted to do, like you were acquiring certain knowledge, and I guess you saw a path toward applying it in a different way, not necessarily being a lawyer, but you've been using that knowledge to innovate. And so essentially it seems like DDI came out of innovating, how people understand and how they're served by following the regulations or things of that nature.
Yes, that's true. It started the business in the late 1990s. So first year in business, 1997. Really, it was about supporting a few local restaurant and third-party delivery companies in Southern California for a few hundred drivers. And at the time, understanding the regulatory landscape and saying, well, what are the rules? Instead of everybody trying to fit a square, peg into a round hole, as it were, it was just understanding the rules and then helping everybody craft a business model. And we started looking at it from an HR support standpoint on how to run a program properly. These days, we look at everything from onboarding through the accounting and tax relationship, risk management, contracts, insurance, everything on the backside to make sure that with the drivers, looked at with the driver's lens first brought to mind, that everything is done properly and then well.
Yeah.
So to your point, it's been a shifting landscape. Started in the 90s and here we are 25 years later.
Yeah, and ironically, it's kind of what you shifted was the delivery, like the delivery of the information that you had and the model from like just initially helping to guide a few people to then using the info to create a whole framework for people to operate inside of. Like you created a platform, right? Like you moved from consulting to platform.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It's always been if we're thinking from an entrepreneurial standpoint, DDI has always been a service business. But over the years, it has, for scale of economy, been more and more we've invested into technology that's enabled us to, really perform our service as a technology-enabled service. So it's definitely evolved over the years.
Yeah, and so like, I guess what role has technology played in allowing you to serve more customers than you did when you initially just working with a few people?
That's a great question. Where do we start? Really, for us, it's a matter of looking at, we'll say, our operations. And if I keep it simple today, we can look at a couple of main pieces: onboarding new drivers and then handling the accounting and tax relationship. More integrations, investments into technology have allowed us to scale those operations, move through a much higher volume of applicants on a national basis with speed and the data integrity and systems integration moving it along. So it's been integral, to put it simply.
Yeah, great. And so I think we were talking earlier about like how there's been a shift with regard to the gig economy. There's been a shift with regard to public perception. There's been a shift in regulations, and it affects now hundreds of thousands of people in California, if not millions of people. Like the way in which the regulatory structure has shifted, the way the public perception has shifted. So kind of what opportunity did you see to innovate that allowed you to better support people kind of through this transition of kind of technology, culture, and regulation?
Yeah, again, a good question, big question, Rich. So when we think of the gig economy, it's what we understand it and talk about it in the public these days. And we call it the gig economy. We call it the last mile for delivery. But really what it is, it's a continued evolution of technology, evolving different industries and allowing for more what we know is, solopreneurs and individuals to succeed. Our kids have grown up in a generation behind us, of course, that understand, hey, I can make money on TikTok. I can go online and be a graphic designer and put myself out here, and here, and not have to work directly for a traditional job. So it's been exciting in that it's a continually, and again, I think it's a theme here today, shifting landscape of regulation and everything behind it. But as this normalizes, what's exciting is that there's a whole new level of services and opportunity for the individuals and the entrepreneurs that are working in this market, whether they're drivers, driving Uber, Lyft, and delivering groceries and things like that, or they're graphic designers working from home for a bunch of different firms.
Yeah, got it. And so you've created various tools to help them, to support them.
Yeah, some new products, for example, that come around in the insurance space. So direct, easy access to dental insurance, to medical insurance, to lifestyle types of products of, identity theft or pet insurance. These types of products are things that we may take for granted, having disability insurance. And if we get sick, we have some wage protection as a traditional W-2 employee. These are programs that are more and more accessible with the normalization of the gig economy for the workers these days. And we're super proud to have been on the forefront of this conversation and now, doing the technology platforms here at DDI for quite a while.
Yeah, great. So in a sense, you've noticed kind of where the gaps are, and you help to provide the things that they haven't had access to, like insurance or like medical insurance and things of that nature. And
we talk to the workers. That's really what it's all about. We have a regular cadence to continually get the pulse of what the gig economy workers are looking for, asking them. And it's like all workforces, is a continually evolving and shifting conversation. Today, they want some basics. Tomorrow, it's going to be 401k programs and, advanced auto insurance, things like that. But we see a certain percentage of the market that are looking for business education, advanced, understanding of how the taxation programs work, things like that. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So what type of challenges you are notable that you've faced in growing the company the way that you have, in terms of growing the team or scaling? Like what are the main scaling challenges you've seen in that regard?
For us, one of the things that's been a good challenge along the last 2-3 years is as if you take a step back and we look at the company again from an entrepreneurial standpoint, DDI's been on what we would call a 10x journey and done it once or twice over the last couple of years, and that's been a lot about scaling our team, our thought leadership, and everything along those lines. As proud as you could be of the team members that you have when you start the journey 2-3 years ago, there's only so many of you, right? And if you need 2 or 3 times the head count, what's been really exciting for me as a leader has been continuing to balance the molding of external talent and recruiting outside talent in, and executives and operators and leadership level personnel, and then our internal talent. I look at my executive team, and it's literally a pretty balanced, almost 50-50 representative team that shows, internal and external talent over the last few years. So finding that balance, finding those talent, those people, and building the team along the way in a rapid journey is a big challenge for us, but it's been fun.
All right, well, let's shift a bit and talk about kind of entrepreneurship and mentorship. And I know it's something very important to you, that you're very involved in mentoring people of all different levels. So kind of, first of all, what's important to you about mentoring people? How does it serve you or feed you to work with other entrepreneurs?
Well, there's a couple of things I think about when you ask that question. One is when you have an opportunity to teach a subject, whatever it is, and offer your perspective on a subject to somebody. And maybe you're saying, here's how we did it, and you're helping somebody solve their problems. I have found that as the teacher, we really learn a lot. We learn how to reiterate the fundamentals. We learn when we say something, hey, here's how we do it. We see, oh my gosh, we're actually off on this piece of that equation sometimes. So it's really great to continue to teach a subject. It keeps you sharp on one side. Secondarily, one of the things that I have found through all of my peer groups and mentorship groups and different groups of this nature is that by looking at our challenges through an alternative juxtaposed lens, how you handle a hiring challenge from my business as an HR firm to your business over here that is in the construction industry, really helps provide clarity on issues. And so sharing these perspectives and mutual challenges from an entrepreneurial standpoint is vital. It really is.
Yeah. So it's like you find that by helping other people, by sharing with other people, that you're able to better see your own issues of your company or the things that the challenges that you're facing.
Exactly. Or sometimes we can't even see, the forest through the trees, right? You look at the same issue that you've tackled in your business for the last 18 months, and you're banging your head against the wall, and your leadership team, as smart as they are and as capable as they are, they're banging their heads against the wall. And sometimes all you have to do is go and talk to your friend that, runs a restaurant group, and they say, hey, here's how we handled that. Or here's one of the things we did that didn't work, but you say, hey, we might be able to. It really goes a long way to helping solve, your challenges or, challenges of others.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my favorite isms about coaching that one of my mentors told me was, you're always coaching yourself. So it's kind of like when you're coaching, when you're mentoring, you notice the same type things that you always notice in your business, you'll notice in their business. And it's like, to an extent, you're talking to yourself when you give them guidance and advice. So it's kind of, that's what comes to mind when you describe that. And I'm wondering, what type of guidance that you think would have been helpful to you as you're growing your business? That's kind of like, now you're helping other people. It's like you're providing them with, if you might say, something that you wish you had while you were coming up with it. So it's like, kind of what type of support you think would have been helpful to you that you're now providing?
All right, my head goes right to rapid scale businesses. And again, we're talking, you're getting from medium to large, you're going through a 10X journey on here. And some advice I had heard and took and wish I had moved faster on was from a friend, Brian Smith, the CEO of Uggs Boots. And it's when you're on this 10X journey is to lean into and invest into your finance team and your planning team. Right? We have our operations. We're so focused on growing our business. Do I have the warehouse? Do I have this? Can I serve my customers? Whatever it is we do, right? From a business standpoint, but it's to invest in the corporate, the planning, the finance team. And candidly, I'm really good with numbers. And it's something that I thought, oh, okay, I've got the strength. I can continue to carry some load on this side. But the workload when you're going through scale on this side of the business starts to become just bigger than I think we anticipate. So it was good advice, and it was advice looking back that I think I wish I'd leaned into a couple of years earlier. Another step or two would have really served us to help us move a little bit faster, so that when you needed that velocity and people start, doing due diligence on you to give you some lending from the bank or whatever it is, you need to move just that step faster to keep up with the 10X scenario. Having that organizational prowess would have been awesome. One step two faster.
Yeah, I think that's a message that I need to hear. I've been hearing it over and over again from people. It's just like, get that like CFO type person, get someone in there who's really looking at your business and making financial projections. And so it sounds like you carry that message to your mentees, and it comes from that you realize that that's a message you ought to have heard earlier on. I love that. And what else do you think that entrepreneurs kind of need to know on their journey? I know such a broad question, but again, it's kind of, where does your mind go when I ask the question of kind of like what do they need to know that no one's saying to them?
Well, let's see. If we're thinking from a mentorship angle, sort of the lens of the conversation here, I really think it's the idea. There's a great book. It's called, I think it's the Big Red S, and it's this, being the Superman syndrome, out of the way. And so it's get the hell out of the way. It's really the message to many entrepreneurs. And we have that first taste of success. Your first couple 100,000 in annual billings, you maybe have a team member or two on your team, and you have the success. But at the end of the day, it is always about building a team. And it is always about finding a way to replace yourself, or pick your analogy, to take off another hat. That's a good analogy on here, right? We all wear a bunch of hats as entrepreneurs, which is true, but it's also the curse. So we want to figure out how to continually do that. There's the coaching, there's discipline, and there's a lot of ideas around that. But this is often a subject that I think, especially with entrepreneurs trying to get to that first million or two in sales and to that next step, that's a regular conversation.
Yeah. So kind of like always have your attention on how do you get yourself out of it? How do you, whatever you're doing, like how do you delegate? how do you how are you going to scale this so that you're not necessarily putting all your attention on this, or it's like have your attention on scaling from the beginning might be a way to put it.
Always thinking a plan or two ahead. You got your org chart today. What's it look like tomorrow? And when you achieve that one, what's the next one look like? You've got to have something that you could sort of be planning towards. But you ask a great question, right? Which is, how do we delegate? And it's hard for talented young entrepreneurs, and I don't mean young by age by any means, but newer entrepreneurs, right? Exactly, to delegate on here. And a conversation and a lesson that I found that works really well is the idea that 80% is okay. And here's the analogy of where I go with that. Meaning, you're the best salesman that you will ever be, Rich. Nobody's going to hire you for IP law for your firm better than you. You know your stuff. You're passionate. You're the entrepreneur. And it's going to be the same story whether you sell flowers or you sell HR services. Doesn't matter, right? Nobody will ever be 100% your equal as the sales rep. But what is okay is that two sales reps who are pretty darn good, they get to about 80% the rep you are sure 1.5 times the person you are individually, right? And it's the idea with that. And you can apply this idea over and over to me. I should have applied it to the finance team. Aaron, a couple of good finance people behind you, could take us further than you can on your own. And it's like, yes, I see that now. We're moving faster, and you can apply it over and over. And it's often with sales, and it's often with whatever our roadblock is. So how do you delegate? How do you get out of the way? How do you check your ego? It's a never-ending battle. But this idea of 80% is okay. It's a coaching angle I try to lean on a little bit.
Got it. Yeah. And I think it reminds me of a principle that I talked with other lawyers about, some years ago in a presentation, which had to do with, we have our own standards for things. And as long as you're fixed on everyone has to do them the same way as me, you'll never be able to grow. You'll never be able to scale. You have to at some point begin to let go of the notion that it's going to be exactly the way I would do it, and recognize that it can still be okay. And I think what you're saying fits into that. It's like an 80%. It's like an 80% standard of like, if it's 80%, then and you can delegate it, then you can let go. Is maybe one way to put that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways to interpret it and think about it. Can you keep your standards high? And what does 80% mean? Standards are there, but maybe the output's a little slower. Yeah. Maybe you close 5 sales a month and they close 3 or 4, right? But when you start to look at it in this sort of way, it allows you to consider scale of economy, because then you start to thinking, well, okay, maybe we can move a little faster. Now the sales engine's a little bit bigger if I take a step back and just coach the sales reps and have 3 of them on the team instead of just me all the time, and start to think of it that way. We're now, to your point, thinking of scaling the business from the beginning and always looking ahead.
Yeah, and just a recognition that you'll always hit the wall as long as it's all about you. It's like anything that's all about me as the business owner, the entrepreneur, will hit a wall at a certain point. And like growing a business from 0 employees till 10 employees to 25 to 50 to 200, you'll hit different walls. And in general, it's about finding talent, but it's about being able to let them do their job, I guess, right? And having your attention on how are you going to move these things from being something I do to something that other people do, or something that one person does to something that a team does, or something like that.
Yeah, very true. And again, as we think of the scaling organizations and teams, the leadership dynamics and leading people in your teams also start to evolve. Because something we've experienced at DDI over the last couple of years is at the beginning of the journey of scaling up, pre-COVID, like pouring fuel on the fire and everything for us and helping accelerate delivery growth and things like that. We had a great management team, but a small leadership team and really not much of a formal executive team. And building that has now me, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, running a leadership group, not of managers and leaders, but of executives and leadership groups. And they have their management teams. So what you have to do in starting to enable executives or really talented, smart people that are around your team becomes a different role. And we have to continue to evolve and shift as leaders. And all of that is part of that scaling journey.
Awesome. I love that. Any other advice for entrepreneurs? Any other things that, like, in working with mentees and with other entrepreneurs, like things that you think that people that are on that journey of taking an idea from in here to bringing it out into the world that they ought to know, or you'd like to share with them?
I guess it'd be two things. Short and sweet. It's pretty common sense stuff. And for me, I combine the two things together. So one is so cheesy to hear me say it, but it's really never stop learning. I mean it. As from this point of your career to that, learning as an entrepreneur, learning as an operator to your industry and what you do, it doesn't matter. You can't stop learning because we have to continue to evolve. And in this day and age, technology, the world we live in, culturally, et cetera, is changing so fast that you have to have that skill set and that agility to learn and adapt and apply. It's a skill. And secondarily is you don't have to go alone. You really don't. You can find your local entrepreneur group, mastermind group, where you and I met, Rich, for example, or your different business group or whatever it is, big or small. And for me, then this is why I start to apply this idea of learning along with my business group, people and friends. And you realize, wow, there's people who have done this. Nothing we do as entrepreneurs, less a lightning strike every now and then, is really new. Everybody's been on these journeys before. So that's my, closing advice from today.
Awesome. I love it. And so if people want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the fastest, easiest way for me. So it's Hageman with an E in there, Hageman. Find me on there, Aaron Hageman. It's easy enough.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thanks so much for taking the time and doing this interview, and appreciate you. And I appreciate the time that you dedicate to other entrepreneurs, to the homeless population, and to really people out there that you give your gift to. And I appreciate you.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks, Rich.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.